ヘッドオーストリア本社から撮影させていただいております。
お送りいたします。
我々が比較的入社して新しいということで、
そうですね。
私の場合2年。
はい。私半年新しすぎるっていう。
ということで、ミスターヘッド、ヘッド博士の方に、ヘッドの歴史を今日は我々にレクチャーしていただこうという時間になっております。
Hello, my name is Ralph. I'm leading the department for research and development here at HEAD. And yeah, I'm now since 20 years with the company, since 25 years in the racket industry for R&D. So I'm a small dinosaur.
So I'm Harry. I'm also part of the same department as Ralph. I'm doing all the 3D drawings. I'm more or less the creator of all third dimension of what created before in design, as in a 2D version or in the heads of the marketing guys. So in our department, the ideas getting lively, and I'm here in the company since 23 years.
You want to start with talking about the history of HEAD?
Yes, we prepared a bit. You know, we have this year 75 years of HEAD, and we prepared something for you. So we have a bit of an overview of the history of HEAD, and of course it all started with Howard HEAD. And Howard HEAD, he was an aerospace engineer, so he knew about new materials, combining different materials, which basically is a composite construction. And he was also a very passionate skier. He loved skiing, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, he was not that very skilled. But he did not admit that it was his problem. He said, no, it's the ski. You know, the skis are too heavy, and yeah, I have to reinvent them. And so he used his know-how from the aerospace technology industry and invented the first metal composite ski. And of course he needed a lot of prototypes, but in the end was successful and founded HEAD, the company. And yeah, the same construction principle was also used when HEAD started in 1969 to develop tennis rackets. Here you also see the construction with aluminum top sheets, and then you have in between, you have a kind of distance layer of epoxy, and thereby you create the stiffness that you need, the strength, and also you have a kind of nice playability. You save some weight, and so this racket was very successful. And in 1969, I would say about 99% of the rackets in the market were still made out of wood. So it was a huge innovation, such a racket. In 1975, Arthur Ashe winning Wimbledon, and Howard HEAD was very creative, and so was Arthur Ashe, but in a different way. When Arthur Ashe entered the final in Wimbledon 1975, the huge favorite was Jimmy Connors. Jimmy Connors was known for hitting really hard from the baseline, taking the balls earlier, having left-handed special strokes like backhand, and so everybody thought Arthur Ashe, he will lose, because hitting hard, Jimmy Connors is better. Arthur Ashe also himself thought about this and said, yeah, if I play the same game like Jimmy Connors, I will lose. So I need to have a special tactic. And so he, for himself, found this tactic to play pretty soft shots. So not giving power to Jimmy Connors, but attacking the net with soft balls. And Connors was, in the first two sets, absolutely surprised. I think in the third set, he somehow managed to win Connors. But the fourth set, Arthur Ashe stick to his tactics, soft balls approaching the net, and he was winning Wimbledon. And it was a huge surprise at that time. And yeah, thanks to his creative tactic, and of course, thanks to his racket. We introduced in 1969 composite racket. Afterwards, we also made aluminum rackets. And then we actually made in 1980 wood rackets. That was because Guillermo Vilas, Argentina player, and he was known for, let's say, his underarm. The size was like other people, you know, here. He was really very strong, lefty, playing a lot of topspin on the backhand and forehand. And he joined HEAD, wanted to join HEAD, but he wanted to have wood racket, and so we developed a carbon reinforced wood racket, and we have some rackets from this time here. These are the old rackets, and what you see here, for example, is also something interesting. You see that the holes here for the strings are not in one plane. On the inside they're in one plane, but on the outside they're kind of, you know, they have a distance. And what was used at that time, because if you would drill the wood all in one plane, it would split. So it would break from one hole to the next. And that's why at that time you had to drill these wood rackets in a different way. And yeah, so we were not only successful in introducing composite to the tennis racket, but also then successful in making good carbon reinforced wood rackets. And then of course a big milestone came in 1987. Actually, I think rumors are that it was maybe already introduced in 1986 to some players. And this was, the legendary Prestige racket. So at that time, a racket with a very thin beam. You know, most rackets at that time were wider, and this one was very thin. And it had this special grommet set, cap system, computer added protection, and was overall an unbelievable successful racket. We see here a later version, which is the Prestige Classic, which was introduced in 1993. And at that time, 25 of the world's top 100 were playing Prestige. So really very successful. Another milestone was in 1993 when we extended our tour line. We introduced the Radical Tour and the Pro Tour. The Radical Tour was played by Agassi. The Pro Tour was played by Muster. And yeah, it was, I remember pretty well, because I think it was November or December 1993, I play tested the mid plus of the Radical Tour by myself. In the end, I chose the Prestige, but it was, great racket. And at that time, you know, everybody was really excited. And if I remember correctly, Agassi was already in 1993 at Wimbledon. He was using the racket. And if you see some old videos on YouTube, you will find at that time Agassi, before he had some problems with his shoulder. I think it was impingement, you know, a problem with the tendons. And that's why if you look at the old videos, you see that Agassi was making a special serve. You know, he was not starting like this, but instead starting and then lifting up the racket and then tossing the ball. So thereby he wanted to avoid additional load on his shoulder and also to make the serve improve it. And he actually was pretty successful. He lost a really very tight match against Sampras in the quarterfinal, but it worked out. Later on, he changed his serve to the more normal motion, no longer the abbreviated motion, but was successful. So we have creative Howard Head, we have creative Arthur Ashe, and we have somehow also creative Agassi, because kind of changing the serve for some time to improve it. Then if we go forward, of course, a big milestone also, Gustavo Kuerten. I just mentioned the Pro Tour, and he was using the Pro Tour, the famous blue and black racket in 1997. So this is here the US version of the 1997, and this was called Pro Tour 280. So this one was also without the cap system. Also a very, very famous frame. Muster winning in 1995 the French Open, Gustavo Kuerten in 1997. So it was a really very successful racket. And if we go forward, a very big milestone was then in 1998, the introduction of the titanium rackets. And here we have the the most famous one of the titanium rackets, which is the titanium S6. And it was really a revolution to the market. You know, it kind of entered the market by storm. And well, what was so special about the racket? Of course, it was very, very light, 228 grams. But maybe there were also other small reasons. It had a special shock stop dampening system. It was 708 millimeter long. It had special cross section, pretty wide, pretty round, and it has a special fan pattern. So what of these kind of special attributes contributed how much to the success of the titanium S6? Nobody knows. But overall, the titanium S6 and the whole titanium line really conquered the world of rackets, of tennis rackets, and it was a huge success for HEAD, for the company. Do you remember this one?
No idea.
No idea. Okay, no problem.
No
problem.
But what year was that?
That was in 1998. It was introduced in spring, January 1998, but you mentioned before you were 5 years old at that time.
5 years old.
Yeah, difficult.
It's still the most sold racket, I think.
Yeah, it's
All
still
hand
very
rackets.
popular, so it's a kind of real legend. You know, if you look at the tennis racket overall, normally if you look at legends, it's mainly tour rackets, you know, rackets that were played by pro player. However, this one is really a legend, which was never played by a pro player because it was not for pro players designed, but yeah, really a legend in the racket industry. Yeah, and then if we go forward with technology, we have something other really innovative, and we can even make a nice, interesting test with you. This was the intelligence technology, which we introduced in 2000, and then it was actually really a challenge to produce the rackets, and you know, because you see here we have a chip inside, you know, we have a circuit. And yeah, that's why it took some time, but then we entered the stores in 2001, and we can make even a nice test.
You have to hold it with 2 fingers.
Both of you are young, so you don't have any hard, you know, device. Okay, no problem. So you hold it with
Yeah, exactly.
2 fingers, like this, exactly. Gentle, you know, we will make it gentle, but let's see.
Ooh.
Okay. Ah, 来た来た来た。
So this is, we had here piezoelectric fibers inside.
Yep.
And they create a current, they create electric energy. The electric energy is sent back to here. And normally the electric energy is then used to actively dampen the vibrations. For this demonstration racket, we use the electric energy to stimulate you. So that's why this was taken. And yeah, I think really very innovative technology. Yeah, if we go forward, I think this is where most likely you see more rackets and let's say technologies that you remember. So we have Liquidmetal, which was then of course first Ivanisevic winning Wimbledon with a wild card. It was also special, the final, because the final was played on Monday. Normally final in Wimbledon always on Sunday, but the problem was that Ivanisevic in the semi-final against Tim Henman, he was nearly, you know, losing, you know, but then rain helped him, rain saved him because it was raining heavily, and so they had postponed the match, yeah, on the next day then Ivanisevic was successful to win and then entering the final against Patrick Rafter. And at that time, I only remember watching the final in my hotel room, and I don't know how many match points Ivanisevic needed, but if you can watch the match again, it's really, even if you know the outcome, you're like, oh, goosebumps, you know, will he make it? So it was, yeah, really tight, very tight. I think it was 9-7 in the 5th set against Patrick Rafter. So to really attack her, you know, serve and volley. Of course, Ivanisevic mainly serve. He hardly needed volley. And yeah, of course, it was a huge win for him, winning Wimbledon with a wild card. And yeah, great success for Ivanisevic and great success for HEAD. And then if we go forward, In 2003 we introduced Liquidmetal. Agassi won the Australian Open with Liquidmetal rackets, and then Anastasia Miskina winning in 2004, and we had even the French Open, and we had 2004 US Open. Svetlana Kuznetsova was also playing at that time with a Liquidmetal instinct, winning the US Open. So it was again a lot of great success. Then of course a big milestone was in 2009. We had Novak signing with HEAD, and I still remember I was at one playtest, I think it was just before Christmas, 2008, with our pro player manager, so traveling down there and testing some final rackets. And it was of course he was already experienced, but in 2008 still pretty young, and it was just impressive to see his dedication. You know, I mean, he was looking for perfection. He was expecting a lot, so he was challenging us. But this is basically, I think, the root and one cause of all his success, because he's really absolutely dedicated, absolutely passionate, and trying to really make the best. A start of a huge success for Novak, and of course for HEAD. And then also, of course, big success was Maria Sharapova joining Team HEAD and winning Roland Garros in 2012, and thereby achieving the career Grand Slam. Graphene was then introduced in 2013, the technology where we managed to improve the weight distribution of the racket. If we go forward, players, we have Andy Murray winning his Olympics title, and I think he should have been US Open 2012. Yes, he was also winning, and then winning first Wimbledon title in 2013. More players, more athletes, Marin Cilic, Marin, of course, he won in 2014, he won the US Open. You know against who he won. A Japanese player who was very passionate, but Marin 2014, he won the semi-final against Federer in straight sets. Was a huge surprise, and I think at that time he was kind of unstoppable. In 2019 we introduced the Gravity line. I think this is now what you all know. Of course, we have Ash Barty winning Australian Open in 2022. Our Boom line being introduced, but I think this is more the recent history. But of course, being young and being born, I think Noki around the time of the Radical.
1993,
of course, I think for us the most interesting thing is to show you more about the past. So to show you more about this. And so we prepared something for you that we want to show you, and basically it's about what Harry, let's say nowadays, of course, when doing construction, he's working on the computer with special software. Back in the days, mid of the 80s, the world was different. And now we want to bring you to the world of the mid of the 80s.